Let's talk about it. The R word, recession. Garrett, in your mind, how close are we to a recession and what might be the ultimate turning point?
I think we're in one. The Atlanta Fed reduced its inflation or its recession or GDP number for the third quarter to 0.3%. The numbers on the new housing sales were actually pretty good, but at the end of the day, the pending sales were not that strong. And I think it was like an 11-year, 15-year low. The key thing, again, to keep in mind is that housing and consumer cyclical and durable goods sales are effectively what drive recession or expansion. That's about 15% of the economy. Durable goods numbers, we'll get them soon. Paying very close attention. We have a GDP number coming out today, I believe. I think it comes out at 10. Maybe it already came out. But again, it's such a low growth environment that it almost doesn't matter. The thing that you have to remember about GDP is that it can be manipulated pretty quickly by two things. One, exports, and two, by inventories. So if we had strong inventory levels, that may keep us above where we were. But I think Q4, Q1, and Q2 of next year are going to be pretty bad. So even if it's not a recession, it's under 0.5% growth. Can't have a lot of confidence in that when inflation's running at about 8.3%.
Well, during CNBC Summit yesterday, founder and CEO of hedge fund giant Citadel, Ken Griffin, said the Fed needs to do a lot more than fight inflation, even after raising rates again and again. Are you in agreement with what these steps are that the Fed is taking? Should they take a different step? That's going to give you a signal to sign peak inflation.
The Federal Reserve is just one part of the equation of inflation. I think that that's a really important thing to remember. And again, I don't like to get political about things, but what Congress is doing and what the White House is doing is pretty much running the antithesis of what you need to do in order to fight inflation. You don't come out with an Inflation Reduction Act and drop $600 billion from the sky. You don't come out and effectively forgive student loans because that's going to be inflationary. Give a bunch of Americans $10,000 in debt forgiveness and watch what they do with it. They're not going to put it in the bank. They're not going to put it in the market. They're going to spend it. So the Fed is fighting this by itself. They have to raise rates. Effectively, what you're going to see, they're not going to let go of mortgage-backed securities. I think at some point they're going to pivot and they're going to increase their balance sheet. And we're going to be talking about a 10 to 12 trillion dollar balance sheet at some point. But for now, I think the biggest thing that the Federal Reserve can do, this is a bunch of economists. They should know this. They should be going into Congress right now and lecturing Congress, not the other way around. They should be telling Congress that they need to stop passing bills that are inflationary, that impact discretionary spending. They are crushing aggregate demand on their own. And the problem with this situation is you cannot recover without strong supply side economics. We need more energy, we need more food, we need stronger transportation, we need more workers. I think that's a really important thing. One of the biggest lessons of 2020 is you don't incentivize people not to work. You fix your immigration policies to ensure that we have more people coming in who can qualify for jobs and can help expand this economy. You don't just keep printing money. And that has been really the role of Congress for the last 2 years.
Garrett, how are traders supposed to set up their portfolio during the R word recession? How do you set up your portfolio differently?
So the primary thing that we're focusing on is the stuff that we need, not the stuff that we want. I think that's a really important differentiation. Keep in mind that you're seeing Apple really pull back right now as a result of that downgrade. But why did it downgrade? It downgraded because they're reducing their production. Is there any difference between an iPhone 13 and a 14? Probably not. Not significantly. Maybe it's got some new features, but people aren't going to go out and spend $1,000 on a new phone when you are facing this recessionary environment. Remember, when it comes to the word recession, the consumers will behave regardless of, in a certain way, regardless of what the officials tell us. So people are cutting back. We're putting more money on their credit card. That's going to have to stop at some point. People are dipping into their savings. That's going to have to stop at some point. So the discretionary spending is going to slow down. So go back to, what do you need? Well, you need medicine. You need food. You need real estate. You need a lot of things around the water utilities. There's a lot of opportunity there. I'm looking at companies like Energy Transfer, ET, currently trading at $11. I'm happy to buy something like that and get an 8.4% dividend, which is going to beat inflation and at least help me tread some water. I am sitting in cash right now pretty heavily because of the momentum event, but I am picking around and I'm looking at companies that are trading for less than their liquidation value. So there are companies like Friedman Industries, FRD. It was trading down around $7, $8 for a while. This stock at liquidation, somebody comes in and buys it out. It's about $11.50 to $12 per share. So there's different strategies that you can employ right now. Value is an important one, focusing on the energy side, focusing on the food side, focusing on the stuff that we need. There was a lot of insider buying on an apartment company. BLT, I think, is the ticker. BRT is the ticker. We'll talk about that today at Midday Momentum.
All right, tune in for Midday Momentum.